If I can get your signature on the bottom of this, please." Abigail took the board and pen from him. "Thank you so much for your efficiency. If we don't get on the road by 10, we won't get to Ridgmont until late. Where do I sign? Here?" "Yes, please." He held out his hand and took it back once she'd signed. "Give us a few minutes and we'll be out of your hair." He smiled before walking back to the house. The front yard had 3 moving vans parked next to her Honda and Elise's Jeep. Abigail felt choked up when she glanced at the naked windows. The net curtains were all packed up, waiting to be hung in their new house in Washington, D.C. All the shrubs and plants she'd sown from seeds were staying, including the creepers on the house. In contrast to the full garden, the house was empty. She wasn't as upset at leaving this house as she had been moving from their previous home, the place she'd chosen with Dan. The memories in the old house were too painful. A car turned into a driveway, through the gate she'd left open for the morning. Abigail waved to Maggie and Brian, telling them to park over the far side of the drive. She sauntered over to them, leaning on their Fiat. "I can't thank you enough for helping us." Maggie hugged her first. "Don't be silly, Abby. It's on our way to Mom and Dad's." "Nonsense. You're doing me a huge favor. I'm so grateful." She held Maggie's hand and squeezed. Elise thought she was going to be driving her Jeep there. She leaned in and whispered in her friend's ear, "She's not in the best mood this morning. Axel broke up with her last night, but I didn't tell you, okay?" "I've been warned. Bless her." Maggie, one of her dearest friends from childhood, squeezed her hand in return. "Looks like everything's sorted here, though, doesn't it? Is everything packed and loaded?" "They're doing one last look now." She checked the time on her new watch. "Yeah, we need to be making a move. I told Sara we'd be in Ridgmont by 8. She says she's going to have dinner waiting for us when we get there. And some of that yummy strawberry wine, I hope." "I dare say it might be on the menu. Yes." She took Maggie by the arm and walked her into the house, where the 6 removals guys were busy chatting in the hallway. "I just want to take this opportunity to say thank you so much," she told them. "You've all been brilliant. I'll be posting a fabulous review on your website, that's for sure." "We've had a good look, Mrs. Bennett. Everything's loaded that we can see." The foreman encouraged his guys to leave the house. "We'll be on our way now. I'll invoice you in the next couple of days." Abigail waited for them to jump in the vans. After waving them off, she took Maggie into the bare kitchen. It was sad to see it so empty. The living room seemed so much bigger without furniture, she thought, a lump in her throat forming. I promised myself I wouldn't cry. "You're entitled. It's the end of an era." Maggie's chin wobbled as she struggled to contain a sob. "We've known each other since we were 6, Abby. You've always lived in Memphis, and now you're not going to anymore. I'm going to have to drive 900 miles to see you in D.C. She held on tight to Abigail's arm. "You know what they say. You can take the girl out of Memphis, but you can never take Memphis out of the girl." Abigail rested her head on her best friend's shoulder. "We'll keep in touch regularly, I promise. We'll Skype, phone, email, you name it. Is this it? One road? Elise looked behind her and ahead. On both sides of the streets there were stores, restaurants, and 2 bars that she could see. This is pretty much it, yeah, Main Street. Oh, I almost forgot. There's a racetrack nearby. That's where the kids your age hang out. In fact, they'll be getting ready for a big night right now. You never know. Rachel might take you there if you ask nicely. Ha ha, you're funny. If only, she thought, watching a group of teens strolling along the sidewalk. Are there many kids my age here? Ridgmont has grown a lot since I was here last. They've got 2 middle schools and 2 elementary schools now. Her mom pointed across the street. Over there, that's the local diner. Everyone goes there. A really original name, don't you think? The Local. Anyone and everyone hangs out there to catch up on the gossip. It's even more popular than the bars. Elise noted an air of calm about her mom. The frown marks seemed to have disappeared. Do you miss this place when you're not here? You spent quite a few summers here, didn't you? Or at least you said you did. With a nod, her mom confirmed it. I missed it dreadfully after the summer with Scott. I came back for summer vacations for years after, hoping he might put in an appearance and whisk me off somewhere. Her eyes were sad again. Life never goes the way you want it to. But you're happy with the way your life went, aren't you? She didn't like the sadness in her mom's eyes. Mom, aren't you? You met Daddy. As though she'd just snapped herself out of it, her mom stared at her, her mouth upturning. Of course I'm happy with my life, honey. I was just thinking out loud. Don't mind me. Good. You were starting to worry me there. Elise saw the youngsters head for a store. She couldn't read the sign because a tree obscured her view. Where are they going? Her mom sat forward, squinting. Oh my, is that still going? I thought that would have gone bust by now. Who'd have thought? Mom? Well? What is it? Pam's place. It's a pottery decorating store. You go in, pick out the plates, cups, or whatever you want to decorate. Then you sit around a table with your friends, paint the pieces however you want, and the owner puts them in the kiln. The next day you go back to pick them up. Pam had just opened the summer I met Scott. I never thought it would still be here. I'm so pleased for her. Her mom seemed at ease in Ridgmont. Almost a home away from home. I like it. I mean, don't get me wrong, it's no Memphis. But I can imagine it must be nice to live in a smaller community, a place where you know everyone. She pointed at the dash clock. We're supposed to be there now, aren't we? Starting the engine, her mom pulled out from the curb. Crawling along Main Street. This place has a weird effect on you, Elise. You start off thinking, meh, it's all right. Trust me, by the time we come to leave, you'll love it here. Happens to me every time. Before I met your dad, I used to look forward to my vacations in Ridgmont so bad. The drive to the farm took another 10 minutes along country roads. For a small town, it sure was big, or at least Elise thought so. They passed a number of houses along the country road. She imagined the residents in her own weird way. Sara and Charlie welcome you to Oakley Ridge Wine Estates, her mom read out the sign at the front of the drive. That is so Sara. Not satisfied with just the name of the vineyard, she has to add that extra special touch. I think it's sweet. Elise was nervous, her leg bobbing up and down. What was she nervous about? It was only Aunt Sara and Uncle Charlie. It had to be seeing Rachel. Elise wouldn't think there was a vineyard on the grounds from the short drive along the stony driveway. The first thing she noticed about the farm was a lack of fields or anything remotely farm-like. Are you sure this is the right place? It doesn't look like much from here, but it opens up out back. Her mom drove them up to what Elise assumed was the farmhouse, a huge, white-painted wooden building with enough space for a family of 12 at least. This is Grandma and Grandpa's old house. That window, second from the left, is my old room. It was weird thinking that her mom used to stay here. Elise unbuckled her belt as the front door of the farmhouse opened. Elise saw her mom, or rather Aunt Sara, first. Different hairstyle, but identical in every other way. I always forgot how weird it is. Elise got out of the car and stretched, waiting for her aunt and uncle to meet them. Her skin felt dry. She needed a shower so bad. Before her aunt and uncle met them, a girl in a cheerleader's uniform stood in the doorway, her arms folded. She untied her hair and covered her face. Is that? No. Rachel? Abigail felt choked up when she glanced at the naked windows. The net curtains were all packed up, waiting to be hung in their new house in Washington, D.C. All the shrubs and plants she'd sown from seeds were staying, including the creepers on the house. In contrast to the full garden, the house was empty. She wasn't as upset at leaving this house as she had been moving from her previous home, the place she'd chosen with Dan. The memories in the old house were too painful. Abigail felt choked up when she glanced at the naked windows.